Okay, so Be'ezras Hashem, we are continuing with our weekly series of shirim on the Zohar HaKadosh, where we draw down the light of Moshe Rabbeinu into the vessels of Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai. We take the general whole of Chachma and we attempt to allow it to find an entry point into the vessels of Bina. The whole tachlis of everything is to draw Chachma into Bina and Oros into Kalim. Chachma without Bina, Oros without Kalim is a re-traumatization of the Shvira. When there's an inundation of too muchness, too much light, too much Chachma, too much light of Moshe Rabbeinu, without the capacity to hold it or to balance it or to minimize it so that it can be used in a measurable way, so then the light overwhelms and it shatters the holding particles and it breaks into a shvira. The goal of tikkun, all of the work of rectification, is ultimately the balancing act between lights and vessels, between Chachma and Bina, between Moshe Rabbeinu and Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai, to take the general principle of all rightness and goodness and infinitude and all that comes along with that, and instead of being overwhelmed by that ideal that doesn't find the revelation within our world, to develop vessels, to build kalim that allow for that light to find a reasonable place for it to express itself, to build kalim mekelim shonim, receptacles, receiving particles that allow for the light to transition down into bite-sized, manageable pieces of information. Moshe Rabbeinu alone is min hamayim mishisihu. He rests within the depths of the water like the Levyasan of the sea, who floats in concealment. Moshe Rabbeinu comes from a place beyond our history, but the goal is to draw Moshe Rabbeinu into Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai, to draw that chachma and to force it to come down into Bina itself, so that we can take that holistic principle and allow it to be broken down into bite-sized, manageable pieces to actually be lived with. This is what we do when we say Soichakan Yafe Yafe Kadesha Dak Min Hadak. When it comes to the Ketoras, there's a grinding that needs to take shape so that it can be properly digested. That grinding it so that it can be thinner than thin, dak shebedak. That's what we're trying to do. We're trying to transform the inundation of Chachma, which seeks to overwhelm because of the infinite nature of itself. And we're trying to reveal the karne chagavim, the antennas of these grasshoppers, that thin ray of light that draws the chachma down into bina so that it can be transitioned into a bite-sized, manageable way. Otherwise, we don't have access to Moshe Rabbeinu. Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai is the ear that allows us to hear the silent call of Moshe Rabbeinu, and that's where Mashiach Tzidkenu comes from, when we can reveal the chachma within the bina. And first, we have to reveal the bina within the chachma in the secret of havein b'chachma, that there's chachma, there's the general principle of chachma, which remains idealized and transcendental to what I can grasp, and any attempt to live in accordance to that is not going to work because it's too lofty of a truth. But then there's the level of havein b'chachma, which is the beginningness and the emergence of constriction as it continues to exist in the infinite realm of chachma. This is what we refer to as the lamed beis nesivos chachma, the awakening of the potential of bina within chachma itself. We're dealing with chachma, there's infinite there. How can you talk about the lave and measurement and minimization? This is the secret of havein b'chachma, that there's the potency of understanding and bina and gvura as it exists already in the refined state of chachma. And then that lamed beis nesivos chachma, that lower part of chachma that can now be drawn down because it's now reduced itself to a certain degree. This is what we refer to as the karne chagavim, like the antennas of grasshoppers, which is the tikkun to the oros of chachma, that they come down by way of sa'aros and through hair and through the minimization of things and the particulars of particularity. And then the light of chachma gets drawn down into bina. But before it becomes bina, first it's chacham bebina. It's the emergence of that principle of chachma into bina, so that we're drawing down the infinite light of Moshe Rabbeinu's Torah and drawing it down into the finite vessels of Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai's Zohar, and we're unifying the Torah Shebechsav with the Torah Shebal Peh of the Zohar, and we're unifying Chachma and Bina. The goal of unifying Chachma and Bina, like we said, is to allow that Chachma, that ideal, that bittul, that recognition that Einoin Mavado, all that exists is HaKadosh Baruch Hu, that everything is fine, and that everything can be reduced into an irreducible point of the Nekudas HaRashimu, where when a person closes their mind, they can go from the Dinim back to the Tzimtzum Harishon, and in the mind, B'chachma is Bariru, everything is clarified. The problem is that that's not how we live our lives, and that's not clear in the external nature of our day-to-day lives. And that's why it's important for us to draw it down into Bina, because to draw that Chachma into Bina is to allow for that feeling to be awoken within the heart. And when the heart begins to understand this wisdom, even though I don't see it, even though I don't intellectually grasp it, nevertheless, I can begin to feel it. And I can begin to cultivate the will towards feeling true chachma. In Bina, when we could be mavin davar mitoch davar, understand something from something else, we're beginning to uncover the secret of chachma that is too transcendent for us to grasp, other than by way of the diminution of it into what we refer to as Bina. So that's the process of chachma to Bina. But that's not enough. It's not enough to just draw Chachma down into Bina. We have to draw Chachma and schlep it not only through Bina, but down to Zer Anpin and into Malchus as well. Because like we've said so often, externally the Partsufim relate to themselves in one way, and internally they relate to themselves in a different way. Externally speaking, when we look at the Shem Havaya, the Yud K, Vav K, which represents the four Partsufim of Olam HaAtzilis, which are going to be Chachma, Bina, Zer Anpin, and Malchus, so Chachma is the Yud, and Zer Anpin is the Vav. Both of those are masculine. That's the father and the son. The Yud is the initial point of expression, and then the Vav is the Hamshacha of that expression downwards. And externally speaking, Chachma and Zer Anpin seem to operate in unison together because they're both expressive. They're both masculine. And furthermore, externally, Bina, which is the first Hey, relates to the daughter, which is the lowest Hey. So it's the father and the son and the mother of the daughter. Chachma with Zer Anpin and Bina with Malchus. That's the external relationship of things. But on an internal relationship, as the Pasuk says, Ki Abba Yisad Brata v'koinen Shemayim b'tvuna, that the father is the foundation of the daughter, and that Shemayim, which is her Anpin, is supported by Tvuna, which is Bina. We see that the relationship between the parents and the child, Partsufim, so to speak, are very different. Externally, it's the father and the son and the mother of the daughter. It's Chachma with Zer Anpin and Bina with Malchus, the Yud with the Vav and the Hey with the Hey. But internally, it's really the first Yud with the lowest Hey, and the second and the first Hey with the Vav. So it's Yud and Hey, which is Chachma and Malchus, and the Hey and the Vav on the inside is Bina and Zer Anpin. Because on an internal level, even though it looks like Zer Anpin is drawing its strength from Chachma, in truth, it's drawing its Moichin down from Bina, like we spoke about. The only time we can actually have Moichin and Zer Anpin is when we draw down the Netzach Hod and Yesod of Bina. So Moichin are always emerging into Zer Anpin by way of Bina. And the Tachlis of everything is Malchus. The Tachlis of everything is this world, this low place, this concealed place, this Dir B'Tachtoinim, this unimaginable place, this unreasonable place, this impossible to understand place. Olam ha'asiya, asiya shaba asiya, that's the tachlis. Ratza HaKadosh Baruch Hu lios ladir b'tachtoinim. Chachma, Yud Chachma Keduma, the shorish of bittul, the tachlis of how we function in this world, fully expresses itself not in Zer Anpin, but rather all the way down in Malchus. So we see that, yes, our job is always to draw down Chachma into Bina, to draw the light down into vessels, but it's not enough for the light of Chachma to stop alone at Bina. Then we have to schlep it even further down so that it could reveal itself in Malchus itself. Why do we need to reveal the light of Chachma and Malchus? Because the lower that we can reveal HaKadosh Baruch Hu's light, the darker the territory, the farther the concealment in which a person is capable of entering into the Moichin of Chachma, the furthering of the revelation of the Chachma of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Because prior to the descent into Bina and into the further levels of separation, so then all we expected was that Chachma could be unified, and anytime there's disunity, then Chachma loses its possibility. But now that we've schlepped Chachma down into Bina, not only down into Bina, but into Zer Anpin, and from there into Malchus, and surprise, surprise, we come to find that the light of Chachma, Yud Chachma Keduma, that light of the Bittul B'Metzius, that Yesha Amiti reveals itself down there specifically. So we come to find that Chachma is far greater than we could have ever imagined, because now we're going back to Chachma, and even further than where we started, we're going into Pnimius of Chachma, which reveals to us Keser, which reveals to us the ability to be above and below at once. And that's the secret of drawing Chachma all the way down into Bina, and then from there into Zer Anpin and Malchus. And that's part of what we're going to see in the Zohar HaKadosh in this week, in Parshas Chukas. Chukas is all about Amarki et Chakmeh v'hi rechoika mimeni, that Shlomo Melech was the wisest of all men, and he wanted wisdom. He wanted to understand wisdom. And he drew wisdom into all of its places, into Chachma, into Bina, into Zer Anpin. But the true uncovering of Chachma, the true uncovering of the depth of wisdom, is specifically in the place of v'hi rechoika mimenu. Amarti et Chakmeh v'hi rechoika mimeni. It's only when I enter into that that place of Rechoika Mimeni, which is the secret of Malchus, do I come to find the depths of Chachma. And that's what the Chuka is. Chukas Apara, the fact that there's this paradox, this impossible to understand paradox that rests at the center of the Torah, that Moshe Rabbeinu, Shlomo Melech, all of the tzaddikim tried to understand the secret paradox of the Paro, which is that it's Metaher Tameim and Metaher Tahirim and Metame Tahirim, that it is something that cures and breaks at the same time. It builds and it breaks, and it's this liminal territory that connects the bottom and the top of the bottom. It's Malchus and Keser, Aniva Ein B'Vasachas. This unfathomable mystery is something that cannot be understood. Amarti Chakmeh v'hi rechoika mimeni. It has to be found in the chuka. It has to be found in the chakika. It has to be engraved within this worldliness. In order for wisdom to truly stand the test of expression, it must be able to express itself in Malchus. And that's the tachlis of the chukah of the para. There's two elements of the Torah. There's the Zer Anpin of the Torah, which is that which is understandable, the Eitz HaChaim, where I feel connected, where I feel illuminated, where I feel like I know something. And when I draw the light of Chachma down into that place through Bina into Zer Anpin, okay, it's a big deal because I'm still functioning as a thinking individual, but it's not such a big deal because on the level of Zer Anpin, I'm still holding in places of wisdom, I'm still holding in places of illumination, I'm still holding in places of having some sort of mochin. But to draw the wisdom down into Malchus itself, the place of death, the place of the Eitz Hadas Tovara, the place of Leis Lemagam Meklum, that's an even greater thing. And that's the drawing of the wisdom down, not only into wisdom itself, but even to the place where wisdom loses its capacity to sustain itself. In that place of Amartia Chakmeh V'hi Rechoika Mimeni. So the secret of the Para Aduma is the need to include within the Torah, within Zer Anpin, within those positions of knowing Hashem in our lives, of seeing Hashem in our lives, that it's not enough to serve Hashem when we know Him. What we have to draw the knowledge of Him into the place where we can't know Him, to draw the light of the illumination of the mind into the territory of the concealment of the mind, to schlep the moichin of gadlus into moichin of katnus, into the chukas para, into this difficult place that Moshe Rabbeinu couldn't understand and Shlomo Melech couldn't understand, and it's the secret upon which all things stand, the secret of the Amunah Kol Zos. We have to draw it down into Malchus itself, and then we can reveal the true test of Chachma, which is Amarti Chachmeh, yeah, the Hirachoika Mimeni, as the Heilige Yismach Moshe says. Shlomo Melech understood that, okay, Amarti Chachmeh, I want wisdom, so I can't know this wisdom. This wisdom is the very essence of what it means to be a human being, the very essence of what it means to be a chakika, something engraved. So Shlomo Melech came to understand that Amarti Chachmeh, I want to know wisdom, so I have to become wisdom. I have to become the klaf upon which the text is being written, the stone upon which the wisdom is being engraved. Amarti, I want to know wisdom, echakmeh, I must become wisdom. That's not something that can be understood, it's only something that can be experienced. And so Zokt, the Heilige Zohar Kadosh, at the opening of the Parsha, V'yedaber Hashem al Moshe v'yal Aaron lemor. HaKadosh Baruch Hu speaks to Moshe and Aaron. Zos chukas haTorah asher tziva Hashem lemor. This is the chukah, this is the law of the Torah, this is the gezerah of the Torah, the unreasonable law of the entire Torah, and this is the commandment. Rav Yosi Pasach, Rav Yosi opens up and he asks, V'zois haTorah shesam Moshe l'fnei b'nei Yisrael. Over here we see Zois chukas haTorah, Zos Zayin Aleph Taf, without a Vav in front of it. It's not and this, but it's just thisness. It's not and this, but it's just this. But elsewhere, Rav Yossi says, we see that Vizos Torah, it's not just Zos Torah, it's Vizos Torah, and this is the Torah, the added Vav in front of the word Zos. Asher Sham Moshe l'fnei b'nei Yisrael. So there's a stira. Is it Zos or is it Vizos? We see that the Torah is Vizos and the Chukas Torah is Zos. So what's the relationship between Zos, this, and Vizos and this? And we're going to see Zos is Malchus, which is the Chukah, which is where we have to draw it all the way down to. Vizos is the light of the Torah, where we have the light of the Vav, where we understand something. And the Iker Tachlis is not only operating by the Vizos of Zer Anpin, where the Torah is understandable, but drawing down Vizos, which is the secret of Tiferes, down into Zos, this, Bezos Yavo Aaron El HaKodesh, and the secret of Malchus. When we could draw down the meaningfulness of the Vav of Vizos, down into the meaninglessness of the Zayin Aleph Taf, which is Zos without a Vav Hachibor, so then we can reveal the true measure of wisdom, that it could apply itself even in the place of its opposite. Tachazi, come and see Milin da Iraisa Kadishin Inun. The words of the Torah are holy. Iloyin Inun. They're transcendent, they're beyond value. Mesikun Inun. They're sweet. Again, the Zohar HaKadosh is opening us up to understand, first and foremost, before we understand the need to descend down into the concealment of the Torah, into the chukah of the Torah, into what the Ramchal describes as the need for the Torah to be moved through the crucible of difficulty and suffering and flames sometimes. So first and foremost, we have to understand that the milin da iraisa, kadishan inun, iloyin inun, mesikin inun. Kadishin inun, Eloyin inun, Mesikun inun. They are holy, they are transcendent, and they are sweet. Kedishin, Eloyin, Masikin is the Rosh Tevos of Oimek. There's a depth to them. There's an Oimek, Bifnim and Oimek, Bifnim and Oimek. There's a depth upon depth upon depth that the more you look, the more you find that you don't know. And that's what gives birth to this three-pronged nature of the Torah. Kadishin Inun, Eloyin Inun, Masikin Inun. That's what needs to be understood first and foremost before we descend down into the chukah of the Torah, the difficulty of the Torah. Like the Pasuk says, Hanechmadim mizahav umipazrav umisukim midvash v'noifes sufim, that the Torah is sweeter than sweet, it's more valuable than gold and honeycomb. Man de ishtadel ba'iraisa, somebody who puts their effort into forcing the light of the Torah to reveal itself to them by way of engaging with the Torah. Ki'ilu kayim kol yum ma'al Torah desina v'kabel oraisa. It's as if they stand upon Har Sinai each and every day and they receive the Torah anew. Because everything we're talking about right now, the yichud of the vizos and the zos, the vav of zer anpin, of intelligibility, and the zos of malchus, which is unintelligible, and how the Torah has the ability of drawing intelligibility into that which is unintelligible, reason into that which is unreasonable. This is the secret. This is the secret of the yichud of receiving the Torah on Har Sinai. Har Sinai is the element of Yesod, and the Torah is the element of Malchus. Like the Ramchal teaches us, that each and every person can see it as if they're standing upon Har Sinai to receive the Torah anew, when we have the ability of realizing the depth and the sweetness and the goodness of the Torah. This is what the pasuk says: Hayoim hazeh nihiyas la'am. On this day you become a nation. V'ha ukma chavraya. On this day, today, that there's a way of tapping into the todayness of the Torah, and a person can become an am when they're miyached kutshabrichu v'shchinte. And this is what the chavraya began to discuss. So now we're entering into the question of the vizos and the zos, drawing the Torah of chachma down through bina and zer anpin, where it still appears intelligible, and then forcing it to go down even farther into the territories of the double darkness that's covered over itself, and the cheshach hakafelu mechupel of the chukah itself, into the territory of malchus. Ksiv hacha, over here it says zois chukas haTorah, zois without vav, which means malchus, the barren nature of thisness in the world that doesn't have any quality to it. It's not filled with meaning. There's no vav hachibor there. It's empty. It is what it is. Oilam kemen hagonoeg, zos chukas haTorah. But it's also written v'chsiv v'zois haTorah. But there's a vizos haTorah. So we see that there's two qualifiers. There's zos, there's this, and there's the vizos and this. Ma ben hai lahai. What's the difference? What's the distinction between the vizos of the Torah and what we're referring to as the meaningfulness and the possibility of making real connections of narrative in this world, which is the vav hachibor, that hermeneutical freedom that comes with the vav hachibor, versus the zos itself, which is just the plainness, which is not something that's subject to interpretation, but rather it just is what it is. Ma ben hai lahai. What is the difference between this and that? And again, Chazal, Rashbi, v'chaverov are revealing within the separation itself, within the tznuas hamachloikas itself, is the basic assumption that there's going to be a unity. What's the difference between these two things, so that we can properly understand that tzveidim and then make a yichud between the two of them? It's a secret of them. Ein das havdalah minayin. I could only have das. I can only find the connection between disparate points when I understand the separation between the two of them. So the question is, what's the difference between the Torah and Zois Chukas HaTorah? It seems to be that there is the illumination of the Torah and something that is an element of the Torah that doesn't have that illumination. Raza Elohu. Rather, this is a big secret. This is a secret. Raza is gematria of chakak, of engraving, of chukas haTorah, of Yitzchak Avinu, of the secret of descent down into the constriction itself to reveal the light of Bina. V'hachi ulpana, and this is how we've learned. Zois haTorah. What does it mean, v'zois haTorah? And the clarified illumination of the vav hachibor on the Torah of Zer Anpin. La'achza kula b'yechud achad. When you're holding by a level of v'zois HaTorah, the vav is mechuber to the zois. There's a yichud of zer anpin and malchus. The Torah is being drawn down to its furthest place. La'achsa kula b'yichud echad. Everything is now going to be able to be seen in one fell swoop of unity, above and below, clarity and lack of clarity. When there's a yichud between the vav and zois, between zer anpin and malchus, we're operating in a place of unity. Ula achlala knesses Yisrael b'kedusha b'richu. To elevate knesses Yisrael, nishmas Yisrael, malchus with HaKadosh Baruch Hu, with vav, with zer anpin, le'ishtachacha kulachad, to reveal the light of illumination. When it's vizois, there's a yichud of above and below. It takes into consideration the light of HaKadosh Baruch Hu being found everywhere. But this vizois is still when things appear unified. This vizois is there when it appears that things are functioning normally. Beginning kach vizois HaTorah. And therefore, when it comes to the illumination of the Torah, of Chachma being drawn down into Bina, and then Bina being Mashpia, those Moichin of Chachma to Zer Anpin, at that place we're still operating like unified mention. It still feels like everything is okay. And in that place I can feel the light of unity, Vizois HaTorah. Amai Tosefes Vav. But what's with the additional vav? What's the vav teaching us over here? Elaha itmar. This is what it means to say. La'achza dekulachad below piruda. The Vizois is not coming to tell you that everything is one and the same. It's telling you that the Torah has the ability to reveal itself in two different places. It can reveal itself above and below. The Torah of Vizois is where I understand the role that Zos plays within the Torah. That there's the there's the Vav HaChibor, and then there's also the recognition that there's going to be moments where I don't feel that Chibor, that moment of Zos itself, but that Zos, that Malchus, that Dir B'Tachtonim is included within the Vizos, and in that place we have the fullest revelation of Torah. It turns out then that the further down one goes into the territory of Zos, which appears to be devoid of meaning, is the further the yichud of the revelation of meaning within meaninglessness that comes about afterwards. The true power of wisdom comes about when it reveals itself even in the sichlos ma'at of that which is far from it, the unreasonability of Chukas para. Everything is unified. There's no separation. Vizos. What does vizos mean? It's the klal and the prat kechada. It's above and below at once. And with this vizos in mind, we can then enter into the territory of the zos. The Torah is vizos. It has the light and the darkness within it. That's when we have the vav hachibor. Aval zos below tosefes vav. V'zos klal prat chada dacha v'nukva. Begin kach v'zos HaTorah vadai. Aval zos beloy tosefes vav. But when you find zos without the addition of the vav, chukas HaTorah. Vadai. This is the chukah of the Torah. This is the black place of the Torah. This is the element of Tachta Sahar. This is how the Tahara Satmeim comes about. This is the secret of Pesach Sheni, the secret of the Chalal Apanui, of the Even HaShasiyah, that place of Zos that appears to be devoid of the Vav, that allows the Vizos afterwards to reveal itself even more because it can reveal how much of the Zos it can contain within itself, surprising us over and over. Then it becomes the chukah of the Torah. Lo HaTorah. V'lo HaTorah. It's not the Torah itself. Dina da'iraisa. This is the judgment of the Torah, the gezerah of the Torah, the intensity of the Torah, that black spot of the Torah Kavyachol. But the secret of Vizos, as the Zohar HaKadosh continues to explain with regards to the Leviim, which are Gvura, which on the one hand they have a Vav HaChibor, on the other hand they don't have a Vav HaChibor, to reveal that, yeah, that's exactly the point. The wisdom of Gvura is to ensure that we're always holding on to the Vav HaChibor. We're always only holding on to the unity of all things. When we hold on to the unity of all things, we're then able to schlep Chachma all the way down, not only to Zer Anpin, but to the Zos itself, to the Chukah of the Torah, to the Chukas Para, which is the place of Amarti Echakmeh, V'yirachaykem Mimeni, that light of Keser. When a person can schlep the Torah all the way down into those places of concealment, into that gezerah da'iraisa, into the concealment of the Torah itself, so then it comes back to reveal the mafli la'asos, the secret light of Keser Elyon Olav Nikra, which is the para aduma that Moshe Rabbeinu made in the Midbar, which is a secret of the tzaddik Yisod Olam's ability to be matayar the entire world from klipa. That Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai says, Yachol ani lip Torah sa'olam min hadin. Moshe Rabbeinu reveals over and over, Yachol ani lip Torah sa'olam min hadin, with you, HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Rabbi Shimon said, I could do it with my son, because ultimately when a person is being a parent to their son, that's when they're uncovering the koyach of HaKadosh Baruch Hu with them, because HaKadosh Baruch Hu is a shutuf with a parent as a parent to a child. And anytime a parent is with their child, they have an added koyach. Moshe Rabbeinu was able with Hashem to be mamtik all of the dinim in the secret of Para Aduma. that he made in the Midbar. Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai was able to be mamtik all of the dinim with him and his son, Ayalu Bar, above and below at once. And the more and more we trust in the V'zois HaTorah, in the Vav HaChibor, in the Chayim of the Torah, which is rooted in the Chachma Ilah, which is the Chayei HaMelech, the more we're confident in the capacity for Chachma to reveal itself lower and lower, the further the revelation of how profoundly great Chachma is, even in the places of Rechoika, even in the place of Zois Chukas HaTorah, this place of Gezerah Da'iraisa, those things that are unimaginable, those things that are impossible to understand. One place in history, and I said this at my son's bris, actually, my son's bar mitzvah Hil Yitzchak was last night, and I said this Torah over at his bris because it's typically in Parshas Chukas. But one place in which this unfolds, historically speaking, tragically, but also by way of illumination, is what happened with the burning of the Talmud, the burning of the Gemara, Rachmana litzlan, in 1730 in Rome, when Klipas Edom decided to try and destroy Torah Sheba'al Peh, which is the Iker Birur between Edom and Klal Yisrael. And there was an achiza. They brought the Svarim out into the street and they burnt them. There was a bonfire of the Svarim Hakadoshim, of the Asvan Da'iraisa, a tremendous Gezerah Da'iraisa, a Gezerah, a concealed thing, something unimaginable took place. But what the Ramchal is going to be explaining, and it happened in Parshas Chukas, what the Ramchal is going to be explaining is that hidden within the capacity of Jewish history to descend down into places of concealment is how deeply profound the revelation of HaKadosh Baruch Hu's unity is going to be. And this is in Igros Ramchal and Igeres Pevav. And he says, and let me speak to you for a moment about this Gezerah Da'iraisa, this burning of the books, Rachmana litzlan, that happened and where it comes from. There's nothing in this world that takes place without being rooted fundamentally above. And the secret is Zois Chukas HaTorah. V'targuma do Gezerah Da'iraisa. And the Targum is, this is the Gezerah of the Iraisa. Zos, without the Vav, where it feels concealed, where it goes down into the Hakika, into the Halal Panay of it all. This is the Gezerah of the Torah, meaning implying the Gezerah on the books of the Torah that were going to be burnt. That this is what's happening when books are burnt. V'noida shakan nirmas inyan zeh. And Gezerah da'iraisa, the Torah revealing itself in the lowest places, in the Zos, without the Vav, in the Malchus of it all, which is ultimately revealing Abiyas Abrata and revealing the light of Chachma down here, Lamata Me'asar Tvachim, to reveal the Choy Katov Lahetiv. This is included within Zois Chukas HaTorah. V'soid hadavar, and the secret of the matter is Humamish Inyan Para Aduma, the same mechanism that transforms impurity into purity, but at the same point brings about some impurity into purity, and the rectification that comes about by way of difficult things, by way of the apparent loss of meaning. This is the same secret of the burning of the books of the Gezerah Da'iraisa. It's the Para Aduma. Shahashchina Moiseres Atzma L'Sreifa Sadin HaChazak Lahatzil As Yisrael. That the Shechina HaKadosha descends down into concealment in order to save Nishmas Yisrael, to allow ourselves to find the light of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, even in the most concealed places, to reveal that there too HaKadosh Baruch Hu can be found. V'hi hanesinas latahara satmeim she'en lehem tara elahi. And the only way that certain Yidden, ourselves sometimes, can be purified is when the Shechina HaKadosha comes down, the Gilui Shechina, where it descends down into the place of Zois, into the place of meaninglessness. Heim hanitmeim betuma hayoter tekifa, dahainu tumas misa. Those souls that are sullied and dirtied by the harshest tumah that there is, the tumah of death, that have fallen into the raglei yerdei mavis, into that place of darkness and concealment. Shelachein ein lahem tikun elazeh. The only tikun is the Shechina HaKadosha going down directly into that place of meaninglessness, into the milei de shtusa, into the pirkei of shtus that were learned before pirkei of chachma. The Zois without the Vav. V'hi atzma hatumma shel hagolus b'soid ha'shivani b'machsheichim kamasei olam. And this is what Golus is. It's this tumas misa. It's being covered over in darkness, where we can't find the Vav HaChibur, where we can't connect. V'im kein hi ha'oila al mukta kol halayla. And the fire burns in the darkness of the night. The fire burns this taharas hapara. Val tzarech sheyeh his oiris lezel lamata. But there has to be an awakening down here to allow the Shechina to come down to fix us and to give us illumination. Ulchein bezman shaya beis hamikdash kayim haisa efer para. There was the Para Aduma that would awaken this need for there to be this paradoxical revelation of HaKadosh Baruch Hu in the lowest places. But Kivan Shecharef Abayis Vein Para, but because the world is destroyed and we don't have Para, the Beis Hamikdash is destroyed and we don't have para, the Torah itself has to offer itself up to a burning in order to descend down into those hidden places. But this is a fixing of the Golus Torah, because the more we reveal that Torah can be found anywhere, the more we reveal that Hashem's light can be found anywhere, 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 even in the places of meaninglessness. So then we're going to be able to pick ourselves up again. And what the para used to be able to do is what we do nowadays with our Mesiras Nefesh. We have to put effort in, and this is the Zayis HaTorah Adam Ki Yamas Ba'ohel, to descend down into the difficult territories of ourselves, to bring HaKadosh Baruch Hu down, to fix the tikkun that HaKadosh Baruch Hu began, to save ourselves from the Hester Panim, to uncover the tikva of the Yeshuascha Kivisi Hashem, to uncover the deepest depths of the words of Torah, as the Ramchal says. So we should be Zoicha Be'ezras Hashem to uncover the light of Moshe Rabbeinu within the vessels of Rashmi, to draw down Chachma into Bina, into Zer Anpin, into Malchus, into the Chuka, and to be able to say V'amarti Achakmeh V'hi Rechoikim Mimenu Be'ezras Hashem.